Every now and then I make a pattern and I get a little surprise, and that's what keeps this all fun. Let me tell you about my latest. I'm Mari with Mari Sews, and welcome back. So I recently made up Simplicity 8987, and this was a pretty fun make actually. And it didn't come without its surprises. And one really big mistake that I made, but we'll get into that later. The reason why I like this pattern so much and why it's been on my sewing list for what seems like forever is because, well, I feel like it's a nice basic top that can go with anything, jeans, work pants, you know, like all of that good stuff. It's a raglan sleeve. I don't know if you can see that line right there. But then it also has a gathered part that goes right up into that upper portion of the sleeve, as well as into the cuff. The cuff has buttons in the back, which kind of threw me off because I was thinking, well, it's a knit. Why are there buttons on the back of it? Well, turns out the recommended fabrics for this pattern isn't necessarily a knit, which is what I thought this was made out of. So they recommend woven types of fabrics, your cotton types, crepes, double georgettes, light, flowy, beautiful things like that. So other things about this top is that the back actually has a button closure up by the neck. So you can see it right there. There's the button closure. And I already mentioned that there's it has a button cuff down at the wrist as well. I actually ended up using the fabric that I had set aside to make myself a pajama. So now I actually need to find some more pajama fabric. But let me show you what I did make with it. All right, so this is my super loud, borderline garish top that I absolutely love. You can see that I did end up making View B here, which is exactly what she's wearing. I had to shorten the sleeves a couple of inches just so that it wasn't kind of too baggy. I really didn't want that. And I do think that it came together nicely. The second surprise that I had was actually that they didn't have a facing for this top. And I think I've just like become really accustomed to having facings to finish off my necklines. I feel like they just kind of sit nicely against the body. This one recommended that you use bias binding, like a bias tape. And you can see here, I used a teal colored one. But if I'm honest, it's really not my favorite technique. I don't like flipping the collar back in on itself because then I feel like it just provides too many opportunities for the collar to just kind of like stand away from the neck. So I wasn't excited about that, but I still don't think that it's that big of a deal to where I'm not going to wear it. One of the changes I ended up making was to the back. Remember that button closure that they had all the way up at the top? I opted not to do it. So instead of doing the buttons, I just went ahead and cut that fabric straight instead of the fold over that you would have used for a little button placket, and sewed it right up the middle of the back. And it worked fine for me. I mean, I tend to have a head that's like on the like small like Beetlejuice size, but it works. And quite honestly, I don't miss those buttons. Now let's talk about where I actually messed up. So the sleeves do have this little button, right? I mean, it's a nice little cuff. It doesn't have a real placket right here. You just kind of fold it over and then you put it right into your cuff. And so that's what it's supposed to look like. I might actually lower this button a little bit so that way it's a little more lined up. But when I was doing the other side, I had a little mishap. So I had just got done sewing that buttonhole and it was time to open up the buttonhole. You guys know where I'm going with this, right? After I had sewed up the buttonhole on my machine, I pulled out that seam ripper and I thought, no, not yet. I need to put the pin in. So I marked the end with my pin so that way I wouldn't go through the buttonhole. And I popped my seam ripper into that fabric and my seam ripper went crazy. You see that? It just kind of like jumped out of my hand and like ate up my fabric. Not really. I mean, it was powered by me, but you all, like, what was I gonna do with that? What I ended up doing was I just went ahead and cut that entire ripped part off. You can see where my beautiful little buttonhole was. So I just cut it off, and I closed up this seam on the inside, you know, flipped it back out, and then I sewed this entire cuff together. So there's no getting this over there. And in fact, that button's just purely decorative. I mean, it's not useful other than just being cute. So let's talk about sizing. This pattern goes from a size 14 to a 22. Well, you can actually sew this top from a size 6 up to a 22, but the sizes that are in my envelope are 14 to 22. I decided to go ahead and start with a size 18. And so I used the 18 all the way through to the bottom of the armholes here. The sleeves are an 18. And then I started to grade it out towards the hips to the 22, just because I really do need that. I'm quite hippie and I need that extra space. Otherwise, this would have been really tight around my midsection. And well, that's pretty typical for these tops that are, you know, more kind of like cut straight. I always have to make an adjustment for my hips. And because my fabric is so beautiful and loud, let me just show you some pictures of it on. And that's Simplicity 8987. If I were to rate this pattern on a scale of 1 to 5, I would say that this pattern would come in at a 4. I would make this pattern again. I do think that it was simple to make the pattern changes to. However, I didn't really like the way that they finished the neckline. And so that's why I wouldn't give it a 5. But overall, I'm super happy with it. Well, thank you for hanging with me. If you enjoyed this video or you found it informative, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and click that bell notification so that way you know the next time that there's a new video. And until next time, I sincerely hope that you find joy and have a wonderful day. Bye.